think it is definitely possible. Japan is one of the few countries this year where we expect inflation to go up from 2.5% last year to 3.4% this year. So that's well above the 2% target. And actually it's really remarkable when you consider that the 20 years before COVID, the average inflation rate was 0.1%. So we do think that inflation will converge to the 2% target by the end of 2024. There's an upward revision to our forecast. And it's not just headline inflation, core inflation is at the highest level in 40 years, 3.8% in May. There's the labor shortages and the Shunto wage negotiations, which have contributed to that higher, broad-based inflation. So yes, we do see that in our baseline. And so the monetary policy makers are, I'm sure, aiming to achieve the target as well. Well, what we have seen so far is interest rates still near zero, in line with the quantitative and qualitative monetary easing and yield curve control. And we think it's appropriate to keep interest rates there until it's really clear that the inflation target will be durably met. As I said, there was 0% inflation for more than 20 years before then. Right, so we have an unusual situation because Japan is growing faster in 2023 than in 2022, when 93% of advanced economies are slowing down. So we go from 1% last year to 1.4% this year, and then, however, back to 1% next year. So to be clear, this is a temporary boost. It is coming from the support, monetary and fiscal. And so to really ensure that growth stays strong, it would take more longer-term reforms, including to encourage labor force participation, address, as I know the authorities are considering how to best address the demographic situation, support families with children, and generally ensure that the conditions are there for investment and growth. There is definitely an upside risk. Inflation has gone up quickly, more quickly than we expected, and now with the wage growth accelerating, a lot of companies don't really have that much profit margin to be able to absorb the higher wages, so they may have to pass on those wages. And so we could have, again, higher inflation than we expect. So in that context, we see it as perfectly warranted to prepare monetary policy by providing more flexibility in the yield curve control at the longer end. Provide more flexibility because then it will be smoother if it becomes necessary to raise interest rates to achieve that. There are a number of ways of doing that. I think the goal is really smoothing the transition. But what we see is definitely inflation not going back to, our baseline is that we don't go back to zero and deflation, right? So inflation going to 2% in 2024 and staying, close to the target after that. So in that context, it may necessarily be, once it's clear that the target has been is durably met, yes, then the next step is to raise rates and normalize.